Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so thankful that you are here listening to today's episode. I am Brittany Ford and I am your host, holistic nutritionist, content creator, podcaster, all of the good things. This episode was with the good friends of mine at Reputable Health. Katie is a good friend of mine. We actually met at the biohacking conference a couple of years ago. And she is a YouTuber, but also works for Reputable Health and is leading the way in really thinking about how we can use AI to help us be healthier. How can we assess our data faster through wearables and make faster conclusions and understand what's going on faster, easier, more accessible financially than compared to going through clinical studies and clinical trials. So that's what they're doing over at Reputable Health. And we dive all into that today. We talk about women's health and women's research and why there's such a lack of research on women's health. We talk about fertility, pregnancy, menopause, all these really massive stages that a lot of women go through, most women go through, and what we can really do about it. And I thought this episode was very interesting, very forward thinking, and just very nuanced and innovative. So love talking to Katie. We were also joined by Mackenzie, who is the chief clinical researcher over there. And she brought a lot of insight as well into what they're doing and what their goals are for this year. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this. I really encourage you to sign up with Reputable Health and kind of get onto their app. If you have, an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch, whatever you might have, or you are willing to take certain supplements, it would be really cool to sign up with them and start participating in creating more data, more research for these types of studies that they are conducting. I want them, to grow, and especially for the women's health aspect of it, I think it'd be really cool to have a bunch of women join their programs. And, they have incentives as well, which you can go through on the app and take a look at. So like things like free product and gift cards and all that type of thing for you to join their research studies. So definitely check Reputable Health out. And before we jump in, a shout out to Qualia. So Qualia has a product called Senolytic. Qualia Senolytic? Is that what it's called? My goodness, I'm forgetting. I have mom brain. And basically, it is a supplement that you take for 2 days in a month, and it works on your senescent cells and really helps with turnover. So it helps get rid of the old ones, helps create space for the new ones, and really just helps your cellular health, function better by kind of cleaning it up. So I actually just did this last week with my husband. So we did, you take 6 in one day and you take 6 the next day, and that's it. Because I felt like we both just needed some really deep support on a cellular level. And the senescence pathway is one of the longevity biomarkers that they talk about. One of the hallmarks of longevity is this senescence cells and how they turn over. So you can take something like the Qualia Senolytic supplement that really supports that. It's got things like quercetin in it, fisetin, a bunch of other different molecules and compounds as well. So that's by Qualia. Awesome product. And you can use my discount code biohackingbrittany and go through the link. And I really suggest checking this out if longevity is on your list and is something that you are thinking about. I'm 31 and I'm still, very focused on longevity because I think there's so much you can do in your 30s or even younger to be able to have a healthier future. So check them out. Qualia in general is very, very, very biohacky, but also very futuristic almost. And I just love what they're doing over there. So great, great brand in general. And a shout out to Bioptimizers. You can hear that I have mom brain by the way that I'm trying to describe these things. Here I am on a Monday morning trying to get this through to you. And they create great products in order to support brain health. So one of their best ones is called Mushroom Breakthrough. This is a bunch of different mushrooms in it. And essentially they support cognition. So memory, being able to focus, recall things, all these different types of things like that. And I typically take their mushroom breakthrough in the afternoon. I put a scoop in with any type of nut milk or raw milk if I have access to it. And I love their chai flavor right now. It's fall. It's very much the vibe. And it definitely makes a difference for my brain health, for my mom brain, baby brain, whatever you want to call it. So definitely check out Bioptimizers. Use my discount code biohackingbrittany in all capitals, and it will get you 10% off of everything. This is a great discount, and it's probably the biggest one that you can find. So definitely check them out. Bioptimizers in general is like my go-to supplement brand. And then everything else I use is kind of like add-ins here and there, but they are definitely something that I am very reliant on. So enjoy this episode with Katie and Mackenzie. I think you're going to learn a lot, and I hope you join Reputable Health. They're available on the App Store. I will put the link in my show notes and on my website so you can find it easily. And I will catch you soon for another episode. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so excited about this episode. I am joined by a very good friend of mine, Katie Moore, who is the head of marketing and recruiting at Reputable Health, and Mackenzie De Jesus, the head of clinical research. I've known Katie for a while now. We actually met in person at the biohacking conference a couple of years ago, and she is just a ball of energy, and I just love having her on the show. So I think this might be her second or third time on the show. But Mackenzie is new around here, and she is a health scientist and really specializes in research and strategy. So we're going to talk about Reputable Health. We're going to talk about wearables like Aura and Whoop. We're going to talk about women's health studies and how we can really optimize the data that we get from these wearables in order to be healthier in our day-to-day lives. So Katie and Mackenzie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to see you, and congratulations on the baby.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it's fun to be back interviewing people though, but also interesting doing it as a mom now. So,
Yeah, and there's so much like with hormonal fluctuation stuff that happens during pregnancy and then post-pregnancy. And it's like, I remember we were talking about even like, we'll just dive right in, but the Oura Ring scores during pregnancy versus like being super optimized, because you were one of the most optimized people. We stayed in like the same room when we were at the biohacking conference, and this girl like 90s sleep score every night. And then you have a baby and it's like, oh my God, so I hope you're getting some sleep though now.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm getting some, I am and I'm not. Like you kind of just get used to it, which sounds bad. But thankfully, my heart health is back to being great. So like my HRV is good again. My heart rate's good. Because during pregnancy, like your heart is pumping so much blood. My HRV was horrific. It was like in the 30s. And now it's back to like 90s, hundreds again without a baby in me. So it's very interesting to see that.
Did that shift happen right away? I'm so curious.
Yeah, it did. Like day after birth, right away. Yeah. Yeah. And Whoop, is it Whoop who came out with studies about it? That's what the data shows is like once the baby's out of you, you lose so much blood volume as well at birth, and the heart like goes back to normal within a few days. Yeah. Yeah. It's very incredible. So let's talk about Reputable Health. What is the mission and what kind of drove Reputable to be doing what it's doing today?
Yeah, I'll start. So I've been with the company almost a year now. And as you know, I was in the kind of YouTube product review space, and my mission and sort of Reputable's mission has kind of diverged into the same path, and they really align, and it's all about truth seeking. So at Reputable Health, we really do like to think of ourselves kind of like this truth engine for the whole health and wellness industry. And so when it comes to clinical research, we're really full service, actually. It sounds like we're just a platform or an app, but we are so much more than that. We handle everything from study design to recruiting participants for our studies. We then collect real-time data using wearables like Aura and Whoop. And we also have an AI compliance engine to make sure that participants are staying compliant throughout the duration of their study, because that is one of the hardest things to do in clinical research. So really what we're looking to do, kind of simply put, is we're looking to democratize health research. It is so expensive to run a clinical trial, so many companies aren't even anywhere near what they would need to pay profitability wise to do a full scale clinical trial. They take so much time. They're really inefficient. And so we're looking to help brands kind of back their own health claims with solid and scientific back data as well in a way that is, easy to digest and then easy to share. So, we're just kind of giving companies the tools that they need to be able to say, hey, these are the marketing claims we want to say, and this is actually what our product does.
Yes, that's really cool. So essentially, you're taking the data from these different wearables that obviously people give you permission to use, and then you're analyzing this data through AI that says, hey, we found this trend with women age 25, and that means this. Like, you're kind of just putting all these pieces together. Is that correct?
What we do is there's going to be an intervention period. So when somebody comes into a study, say it's a supplement, what we'll do is we collect at least a month of baseline data. So all of the data that you have, before the study you had collected through one of your wearables, we're able to take all of that in. So we kind of see where you're coming from. Then we look at it throughout the duration of the intervention, and we can see day by day what's actually happening with things like sleep and HRV. And then at the end of the study, what we do is we'll take the entire population, and our algorithm is able to kind of formulate this group data that looks at how the intervention compares to the baseline information and is able to kind of give you a sense of like, hey, this intervention out of 150 people helped with sleep. Maybe HRV went down across the population, et cetera. And the cool thing is we can actually remove certain factors, things like alcohol and vacation. Like, we will be able to take those and isolate them out of the raw data. So we're able to give companies more reliable data at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really fascinating because, like you said, like if you do this by a clinical study, it would take so much money and so much time. And that's been the traditional way that we've done it. And then it's peer reviewed, and like there's just so much more to it. And now we're just slapping AI on it that says, hey, like I can do this in X amount of time and analyze this data so much faster, which is so fascinating. And yeah, it's such a brilliant idea, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny because like we do live in sort of this like Amazon Prime where everything is instant gratification, right? And so not to say that Reputable is like the Amazon Prime, but it's like, if you want data about your product now, are you going to wait a year and a half going through the process, jumping through the hoops, like paying all of this money and then finding out, oh, this product, it doesn't actually do what we wanted it to do? No, you can actually find out very quickly using real-time wearable data in a span of a month or two that you are on the right track, that your product is delivering on what you had set out to do with this product, right? So I just think our society, like we are so far behind in the medical world right now. Like, Reputable Health is looking to close this gap in medical research by making it more affordable and accessible, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I do agree. I think that we are behind and things move slower than kind of like what we would want them to move at, like the pace. Especially, it's almost like we're innovating faster than the research can prove what we should be innovating for, which is complicated and interesting. I'm curious, Mackenzie, from the research that you've seen, for Reputable Health, what has kind of surprised you? Like, what has stood out where you've been like, oh, wow, like we analyzed this set of data and we got this result, which means this. Like, what has really, what stood out so far?
A lot of it. We've done some quantum field research where we saw huge improvements in HRV. And, you can be skeptical. You have this intervention that you can't see, you're not really interacting with, so you're not really sure what is going to happen. But the nice part about using the biomarker data from wearable devices is it's there. It's objective. We're eliminating that subjective aspect of how is each person feeling or perceiving their change. Even physicians, a lot of studies use physician reported, but it's not really capturing like what is going on physiologically when these people are subjected to these interventions. And so that's kind of the differentiating factor. You can see these huge boosts in HRV where on average it's 9 to 10% improved after 7 days of going through this intervention. And it's so informative and allows us to really like complete the picture on what we're looking at. So we haven't analyzed it all yet, but we do still pair it with participant reported surveys. So we want to know, how do they perceive their quality of life or their overall health as a woman changing as they're going through it. And then we can correlate it with the changes in the biomarker metrics to really understand like what is happening here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that aspect of it, of like, how do you feel? And then what does the data show that you should be feeling or could be feeling? That's very interesting. And the quantum field is so interesting because like, that's something that I definitely struggle with. Like, even if you take it even into the world of like EMFs, right? Like we can't see the electromagnetic fields around us, which is why so many people are skeptical about it. But then what if we could prove that, hey, it does improve your HRV if you use this device in conjunction with like mitigating EMF in this way? Or yeah, like that's so fascinating. And maybe that's the missing piece that a lot of people need.
Right. You take out, how is each person perceiving their impact of it? And we're really looking at, this is what the body is telling us as a result of going through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you're kind of shifting a bit to focus on women's health, or like this is a new sector for Reputable Health. Why the shift to women's health now? Like what kind of brought it to surface for you?
Well, women have been left out of clinical research for decades, for way, way too long. As a result, we've had so many issues with misdiagnosis, mistreatments. I mean, 80% of, women are autoimmune, like 80% of autoimmune cases are women, which is very upsetting to hear. And as we started to look at like, what are some of the core features of our platform and our services, it really has to do with this, like, everyone can participate. It's like clears the playing field for everyone to come in and be able to do research. They used to say that women, their bodies were too complicated and hormonal fluctuations. Well, no, we can actually measure that now. We can take those things into account. We can ask you the first day of your last period. We can start to see when you're, if you're in menopause, like what are these interventions actually doing? Because we can take all of those things into account thanks to advanced technology. So it almost was like a no-brainer, the passion of every single person on the team. And we are a small team, but it's something that we noticed was a huge deficiency in the medical research space, and it needed to be solved, and we have the tools to do it.
Do you have trouble recalling names, dates, or where you left things? I definitely do as a new mom. I kid you not, I am forgetting things all of the time. I feel like I'm juggling so much in my brain, and it's really hard to keep clear-minded when you are taking care of a newborn. If you're struggling and you're finding it difficult to focus during the day, or you notice yourself zoning out when people are talking to you, your cognitive health and your brain could really use some love. Bioptimizers has created a one-of-a-kind product called Mushroom Breakthrough that can supercharge your brain power. It's packed with highly concentrated mushroom extracts that science shows enhance memory, focus, processing speed, and more. Just one serving contains 5 potent superfoods, collagen, and 1.2 pounds of 4 concentrated mushrooms: lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, and chaga. This cutting-edge blend is a powerful way to rebuild your brain and rewire it for maximum energy, focus, and performance in less than 30 days. After each serving of Mushroom Breakthrough, your ability to memorize and recall information will improve. This is actually like, I notice such a difference with this. I'm serious. Every time I take this, I notice a difference. And you'll get a heavy dose of antioxidants for immune support. The way that I do this is I drink it daily. I add 2 scoops to a large glass of nut milk, and I drink this in the afternoon. It's my afternoon pick-me-up that is not a stimulant. And as a new mom, as a parent, I literally rely on this. This is like my mommy's milk, mommy's mushroom milk that I rely on to get through my day and really help my brain perform much better, kind of like how it used to before having a baby. So don't miss out on the brain boosting power of this amazing product. For an exclusive offer, you can go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbritney and use code biohackingbrittany at checkout. This will get you the most amount off. So if you even compared to like Amazon or anywhere else that you see these products, my discount code will get you the most off. So make sure you use it. Again, that's biohackingbrittany and use the code at checkout. And the great thing about Bioptimizers is that you can try it risk-free with their 365-day money-back guarantee. Try it now to sharpen your edge and reach your full potential. Yeah, I think it was, 1993 when women started to be included in medical research, which was not which is not that long ago. And it was very much that narrative of like, women are too complicated. Like, when during her hormonal monthly cycle are we going to collect this data and how does that affect things? And let's not even bother. So let's only focus on men, or let's focus on women who are postmenopausal because they no longer have that hormonal fluctuation. And that's kind of left this massive gap that now we're still trying to fill and make decisions based off of, but we are decades behind in research.
Even the biohacking space, look at like when we first came into this, I mean, I remember you were the first female, I'm going to say biohacker, but like, health and wellness expert who was talking about some of these modalities that I was able to find and resonate with because it was all men. And when I followed the protocols of what my male counterparts were doing, like fasting for 72 hours, cold plunging every day, I lost my period in trying to keep up with my male counterparts. But ultimately I ended up sick from trying to like make myself more optimized. And so that was my light bulb moment where I realized very quickly, oh, this is not a one size fits all. And unfortunately, like a lot of us had to be guinea pigs in that situation where we're doing the things that they say are healthy to do. And it really is not just, a cookie cutter protocol for everybody across the board. It is very different for women. And I think we're acknowledging that, we're recognizing that, and we're making steps to help educate women about what they need to do rather than just staying silent about it.
Yeah, I went through a very similar thing. Maybe, I don't even know, maybe like 5-6 years ago. Very similar of like my cycle became irregular. I started not sleeping well. And I was intermittent fasting daily because like that was the thing to do, was like to not eat for 16 hours. And I, mind you, like I was very fit and it was great, but like it just didn't work hormonally for me. Like as a woman on that plane, like it just didn't work. And you look around and you see people who all kind of look the same. And we've talked about this so many times, but like men, like white Caucasian men who are in their 50s, who are very well off, who all kind of fit into this same like socioeconomic status, are the leaders in this health optimization space. But like, that's not me. But then why am I trying to do what they're doing? But then there's no one else to turn to and no other data to look at. So now we have, Reputable Health coming in that's saying, hey, look, like for people like you, this is what the data shows, which is incredible. What specific data points do you think are the most relevant for women's health that you think, hey, we should be paying attention to these?
Well, I'll just speak for myself in my experience, because we know body temperature is done pretty well by Aura and Whoop. They both have really, especially Aura, and then the newest model has really optimized for temperature sensors. And so I think that's important. But for me, HRV is 100% the game changer when it comes to assessing how good I feel. When my HRV is low and it's that time of the month, like I know not to go so hard at the gym. I know maybe today is the day to back off the cold therapy. Maybe this is a day of like nourishing foods. And so I pay attention to my HRV more than anything else. In fact, like that is my stress indicator. So we are hoping to help women kind of develop better stress protocols, because so many of us are stressed throughout the day. And I mean, it's not a wonder. We have, our phones and everything. It's like bombarding us with messages and emails and Slack and all of this stuff all of the time. Of course we're stressed, right? And the only time we kind of decompress is in sleep. So, if my HRV is really off, I know I'm going to go to bed earlier because my body's going to need to catch up and going to need to rest even more. And I got to prioritize that. So HRV for me is kind of my personal sort of litmus test for how healthy am I as a woman.
I love that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Katie. HRV is a great measure to use. We talked about running a study kind of internally where we start to actually capture where a woman is on her cycle or whether they're menopausal or postmenopausal, and how then these different metrics actually change based on where you are in your cycle. So we can start to like just build this aggregate data set to really look at, hey, you're in the second week of your cycle. You should be looking at your sleep metrics because we see that women's sleep dips here, at this point of the month. Or, start to really make scientifically backed recommendations using the biomarker data and their own physiological, symptoms and systems to help just understand more and bridge the gap that you talked about exists because we haven't captured that aspect of women's health in research.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure you're familiar with like cycle syncing, which is like this concept of like doing different things at different phases of your cycle. And I think it's really interesting. You can look at it from multiple perspectives, like supplements, nutrition, fitness, that type of thing. However, there isn't a lot of data to support a lot of the claims that go with cycle syncing right now. But again, how could there be when there's like such a gap in research? So maybe that's something that like your team can kind of fill that gap of like, it's been proven that your HRV is lower during the luteal phase. And that means that maybe, yoga is better during that time. Like, I don't know, whatever dots you end up connecting. But I think that's the type of information that I want to see. That like, hey, let's actually prove that cycle syncing is a real concept that can benefit women in their fertile years.
Oh, 100%. And love Angela Foster and what she's done in that line of work. And it's funny because it's kind of been the idea of cycle syncing has been an eye-opening for everybody on our team where we have sat down and we've talked about how we can address that with our platform. Exactly. I want to know when is the best time to present during meetings? Like when is the best time to have, a podcast interview, right? Like every single woman, each one of us are bio individuals and we have our own cycles are completely different from one another, right? And so what might work during my ovulatory phase might be very different. Like that recommendation might be very different from yours. And so I want us to get to a place where a woman can actually open up the Reputable app and be able to assess based on 2 months of data. You know what? I'm going to plan a vacation this time. I'm going to plan my, work outing here. I'm going to do this. Like, I want us to be able, like the practical stuff, right? Not just like the nebulous thing, like not like I'm going to run a marathon this day. Like, no, like real world things. Like, like I should go on a first date this day, like planning out your life in reality, which is so much of what has gone wrong with clinical research. It's like, you're like in this, not to bash clinical research. It has a place, but you're like in this container where it's isolated and it's not being driven by your day to day and what you do. And sometimes you just wake up and you're in a weird mood, right? And how do you account for that, right? And so that's why we have tools like this where we can actually take the quantitative and qualitative and make sense of it.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And that's something that I have had to navigate as well is like the wearables are very helpful with the feedback that they give. But then I question like how I feel, how does that relate to what the data is showing me, right? Like it's almost like intuition versus data. And Katie, I think we've talked about this before, but if you wake up in the morning and you look at your Oura ring and your scores and it says like, okay, today you are optimized for a run. Like you should go do a run, but I'm feeling like super slouchy and I don't want to. And I'm just like, nah, I'm not in the mood. What do you do with that? Like, do you trust your feeling and your gut, or do you go with the data that says, your body's capable of doing this?
Oh, isn't that $1 million question? I go back and forth. And in fact, like I spent years in a stressed out state of like, first thing I did before even getting out of bed was look at my Oura ring score. And it sort of predetermined what my day was going to be like. If I got anything like below an 80, I was like, I should just stay here all day. Like, no use. And so I stopped that for a while and it was good to take a break. But, as you kind of go through the exercise of like looking at your data all the time and seeing that things change, just like you don't move the needle that much unless you do something crazy, like, pull an all-nighter. But for the most part, like it pretty much stays in the same range for me. So I have definitely become more attuned to listening to my intuition. There is no, I don't think we'll ever really have a like data metric of what intuition is, but it is the feeling. And I think it's more of like honoring and respecting your body and saying, yeah, sure, the data might say this. And I could, in fact, go for wrong. And sometimes I do, and I feel better. But I think ultimately that's what, our self-will and our free will is, to be able to choose things that are going to be best for ourselves. And so I think always make that decision based on what feels right for you. But Mackenzie, I'll let you kind of take that one on too.
I mean, I think it's one piece of the puzzle, and it's a valuable piece of the puzzle that we now have access to that we didn't for so long. But I always talk about it in terms of the exposome model. So we all have our internal environments, our external environments, and then we have aging and epigenetics and all these other factors that all collectively impact who we are, our health, our well-being. And so using the biomarker data is great, but it is really only one part. You can't neglect all the other things that could potentially be impacting you and affecting you on any given moment. So it's important to really account for as much as you can, whatever's relevant in that moment, and just use the biomarker metrics to help you make better educated decisions around what you're going to do that day.
Have you heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. Your life goals in your career and beyond require productivity, let's be honest. The aging process, however, is not our friend when it comes to endless energy and productivity, and that's why I use Qualia Senolytic. If someone had told me that there are science-backed ingredients that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I would not have believed it until I tried this. As we age, everyone accumulates these senescent cells in our bodies. They're also kind of known as zombie cells. They are old and worn out and not serving a useful function for our health anymore, but they're taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. Much like getting rid of dead leaves off of a plant, Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of them to thrive in the body. The best part is you actually only need to take it 2 days a month. When I have taken this, I've had higher energy levels. I have been more productive, felt more enthusiastic in life, and also had less aches and pains. So resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic right now. Go to qualialife.com/Brittany for up to 50% off, which is wild. And use code Brittany at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's Qualia, spelled Qualia, life.com/Brittany for an extra 15% off of your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode, and I will definitely be taking my share this month. Yeah, I think that's smart. Yeah, it's just combining the two. And the longer you have the wearables, the more comfortable you get with that. Because Katie, I went through the same thing of like checking my scores first thing in the morning, basing my decisions off of that. And then I got to a point where I put my Oura Ring on airplane mode for like 6 weeks because it was like not controlling, but it was just dictating too much of my decisions. And I was like, this needs to just chill. Like I need to chill out. So yeah, I turned it off, and that was the best thing I did. And that was a couple of years ago, because I think I've had mine for like 5 years now. So you kind of get used to it and you have to factor it in, but it's not the end all be all. There's multiple things that go into your decisions that you make. And I think that's really smart. My other thought with this as well, and I actually just went through this morning, is I have an 8 sleep on top of my bed. And so for those who don't know, it's basically like a cover that goes over your mattress. And it can change the temperature of your mattress, hot or cold. You get to decide. It has an AI component to it that will adjust your temperature based on your preferences and your body temperature. And then it will also give you your scores of like your HRV, your heart rate, these other things, sleep, REM, all these things. And it's so interesting when I look at my Oura Ring versus my 8 sleep. and the metrics are different. The data is different every single day. And so then I think like, so my 8 sleep said my HRV was 117. My Aura said my HRV is 89 average. So which one's correct? Right. And so what do you guys recommend? Like when you're kind of comparing wearables on the same person on the same night or the same day?
Well, one thing that we've done, we have taken that into account. And I have to say we've learned the hard way. When we first started, we literally let any wearable on. And so we had people coming in with Apple Watches. And then we realized very quickly people don't actually sleep with their Apple Watch. And so, it's like, oh, okay, so that might give you measurements throughout the day regarding your fitness, but at night, like you don't have enough data. You're not actually sleeping with it. So how are we going to collect data? So we then kind of went back to the drawing board. We looked at all of the kind of scientific research that has been done on the wearables. And we ultimately realized Oura and Whoop are the best at the metrics that we're focused on, really sleep and stress and recovery. And what we do is we limit the wearable to the study. So if we're doing a particular study on a supplement, everyone has an Oura ring. We're not doing Oura and Whoop. We're choosing to make sure that we have, we're giving ourselves the best chance at the highest quality data.
That's smart. I mean, you have to reduce the variables, right? Like you have to try to control it as much as you can. And then I also think like an Oura ring is going to be more accurate than the mattress that you lay on. Like how does the mattress know my HRV? I don't even know how they test that. Like through the sensors, through if I'm lying on my back, like it can feel my heartbeat. I don't know.
I've always kind of questioned that as well. And I sort of like just disregarded my 8 sleep data for the longest time because I mean, if you think about like where the sensor is, like it is actually making contact with the skin. It is measuring, in real time what your heart rate and all of that versus on the mattress, it's like you're not making that skin contact. And I think it's just kind of like their proprietary algorithm that guesses like based on how many times you've slept. It sort of like is in that ballpark range, but I never was able to find that it came like anywhere close. I'm sorry for saying this 8 sleep, but it never came anywhere close to my Oura ring scores. And so I sort of just kind of dismissed it altogether. But I do love the product. I got to say, like fantastic. And that has been like one biohack that has completely changed my sleep.
Yeah, it is really great. It's nice to get into a warm bed, not a cold bed.
Like, and when you're traveling, it's like, I was traveling this past weekend and it was freezing. I was at the lake. It went down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't know what the Celsius conversion is, but it was cold. And I got into my bed and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so lucky that I get to go into a bed where I can temperature regulate and actually like go to sleep faster. It took me forever to go to sleep because I couldn't get comfortable. I didn't have enough blankets. So yeah, that's been a huge thing for me in my own biohacking.
No, I love that. That's smart. In terms of like integrating AI into these wearables, because this is a very new frontier, like this is a very new area that you guys are working in, which is incredible. But what are some of the challenges that you've kind of faced? Like, is it okay, I'll get to that after, but like, I just feel like, I think where my mind goes is, are people giving you permission to access their data? What are you doing with their data? Is their data safe? There's so many companies that, I think it's 23andMe, like low key sells your data or whatever they do with it. Like that's where I worry when it comes to wearables and integrating with other platforms is like, is this going to some sort of cause that I don't necessarily know about that maybe I don't necessarily like trust or recommend or things like that?
What's nice is the way the Reputable platform is built is it's a one-stop shop. So yes, they are consented multiple times. So they're consented when they come into Reputable so that we can connect with their wearable and they can start to see their own data in our dashboard. And then they're consented for every study they participate in so that they get some background into what they're consenting to agree to do and engage in. But what's nice is the second that the individual signs up with Reputable, puts their email address in and creates a password, they are given an alias, a de-identified name. And from that point on, through all of their research experiences, they are de-identified as this alias. So I'm interacting with them as Joe Schmo, not Brittany Ford. And where they can enroll, they consent, everything they do is under this alternative name. We communicate through the app. They complete surveys in the app. All the wearable data is in the app. So they're never really attributed back to who they are at all after that process, so that we can protect them. And then in terms of sharing, the nice part about being in commercial research is someone's paying you to do this research. They're investing in it for product validation and improvement. So the only two people that have access to this de-identified data are us at Reputable and the sponsor who pays for the data, and they never get any names or birthdays or anything that can identify them. So we really do, we want to change the game of research. We want to serve both the participant and the sponsor who wants to do the research. And so we're trying to, cross the T's and dot the I's in the best way we can to achieve that for everybody. But data safety and capture is top of our list important.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's almost like you've become like anonymous, but you have like female, 25, lives in North America, like whatever information might be useful for the data, but it's not like connected to you and your ID and like anything like that, which I think is so important. Because we hear these stories of like data being sold, used for political campaigns, targeting Facebook ads, blah, 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 blah. So we're in such a weird space now of like, no one reads the terms and conditions, right? You sign up, you get an Aura ring, you like log on, you're like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. But then now with these things, it's like, okay, maybe we should be reading these things more and understanding what we're agreeing to.
Absolutely. Our population, the reputable population that we allow our clients to recruit directly from. So they're recruiting anonymous participants already that we have pre-screened for the criteria that you just listed. So what's nice is that it's valuable to us. Like we want to protect our participants because they're able to participate in multiple studies. So we don't want to share, we use them recurring. And so we want to protect their data and keep them engaged and happy with being a part of the reputable community.
That's awesome. So what are some of the other challenges that you might have seen with bringing in AI with these wearables and trying to, create this data and find these conclusions?
I think for me, confidence has been one. So we really have tried to incorporate AI at every level, and research is complex. So ensuring that power analysis, determining sample sizes are accurate. And, we don't want to waste anyone's time. We don't want to waste our clients' time or the participants. So really just confirming all the data that we're getting out of the AI, recommending like how a study should be conducted has been a learning curve. And I think we've done very well. All of the numbers kind of seem to be around each other, which has been good for us. But it is, coming from research and being in academia where it was standard of care for a lot of what I went through. You have to kind of confirm and reconfirm and make sure that, all the pieces and information that you're getting out are accurate and it's what's going to serve our clients best in making claims.
I'll also add one thing that we've taken quite a bit of time to, and I think we've gotten to a really great place, but in the beginning, compliance was our number one issue. So by that, I mean, participants come in, they get the product, then they drop off instantly. And that could be for a number of different factors. And so initially what we were doing was we were like emailing people, like, after every single day, we'd look at the data. Hey, what happened here? And it became so time consuming. And so over the last couple of months, we've actually created an AI compliance engine, which basically is using SMS text messaging to look at did you actually do the intervention? Did you tag it in the app? If not, you'll get a quick reminder. And so this has been a really successful way for us to be able to make sure they're staying compliant, which is always a challenge, but also in a way that's personable and also based on what they've done in the app. So yeah, it's that. And that is something I think all companies and all research facets are probably dealing with, especially on the clinical side. I'm sure compliance is also really challenging.
Yeah, that is really challenging. Because like if you're giving someone to take a supplement every day, how do you know they're actually taking it? You don't. Like you're not sitting, spooning it to them. Yeah, that's really interesting. The text messages is really smart though. like just a quick little reminder to say, hey, did you do this? Yes or no? That's a really good idea. People are on their phones so much. So
we figured it was like very low invasive. Consent to that before anything. So before you even come in to run a study, it's like you're consenting that this is part of our program. This is how we operate. And no, we're not there to watch and spoon feed you the supplements. Part of it is trust, right? Like if you're looking to take part, like you're going to go through, some qualifying surveys before you do get the supplement. But we want to make sure you're actually like legit and you want to do the thing and you're signing up and you know what you're signing up for. And then over time, what we have are what's called premium testers. So these are people that we know continuously are testing out products, are giving us feedback, are, being compliant in the app. And so we are then, have that kind of as a system of like, we've got all of these people we've recruited that have done 1 to 5 studies. Like we can trust this population. So that's a huge part of our winning strategy as well.
yeah, no, I love that. That's really smart. In terms of women's health and clinical research and even like just wellness in general, what would you like to see come in the next 5 years? Like, what do you envision as like, wow, women's health really took a turn and 5 years from now or 10 years, whatever, we're here and, it's a game changer. Like, where do you want it to go from here?
I think for me, right now we are focused on running women specific studies, but it has to be greater than that. So there needs women specific variables in all aspects of clinical research. So when we're completing all these demographic background, women need to have women specific questions that are being accounted for and controlled for. And it needs to just kind of be the standard of just saying male versus female isn't enough. We need to know more about this woman to know, where she is in her cycle or her, life cycle, so that we can better account for how these interventions are impacting women specifically.
I think for me, there's so many issues with fertility right now and with IVF, and I would love to know what is at the root of that. As a woman who is in her, mid 30s and looking to conceive within the next couple of years, I want to know what environmental factors are coming into play. And like you mentioned earlier, like EMF, water source, there are so many factors that, maybe our grandparents and great grandparents didn't have to deal with. Even nutritional food, right? Like right now, so much of what we eat is processed. Like all of these things we have to think are impacting fertility in some way. It's not just like we woke up one day and everyone is having issues and having, there's just too many people, in my opinion, that are having to go through a very intense and rigorous process of IVF when that might not have been the case. And I have friends who are actively going through it and it is a struggle. And I would love to see that reduced. And I think the only way we'll know is if we actually have insights and data into what is causing these issues of infertility. So that's where I want to see things go.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah, and it would be awesome to have more data on that to understand the why, like it's like 1 in 6 couples struggle with fertility now. It's like, okay, why is that increased in the last decades? And yeah, it would be very interesting to see like how do wearables fit into that? Like what are the wearables tracking that we can then, link to that, whether it's HRV, heart rates, like all these different things, sleep, stress, right? Like HRV is a very good marker of stress. Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. I think the other area too that I think about is like, which is quite far off for me right now, but is perimenopause and menopause. And I've done a couple episodes on it, but some women really struggle with menopause and they have a very, very terrible time for a couple of years, very significant symptoms, and it's just horrific. And then there's this idea of perimenopause, which is the years beforehand, and then even the years before perimenopause. So I think like, what can we do in the decade before menopause hits, right? So starting in your 40s, that can make menopause easier 10 years from now. Like that's what I think about of like, wow, I would love to know. The research shows that women who, eat a higher percentage of fat, 10 years later when they're going through menopause, like it has shown that they have less hot flashes. I don't know. like I'm pulling at strings here, but like that's kind of what I would like to see is like bigger picture things. Cause like fertility is this major life event, but then we also have menopause. And I think we really do need to be focusing on that as well, because there's a lot of women who really struggle in that space.
Well, think about like you spent upwards of a year, maybe even longer, like in preconception mode where you were actively thinking and doing activities to help you conceive. We just like one day a woman wakes up and she's in menopause, right? Like we don't do any preparation. That's partly because we don't have enough research. We haven't done the work to see what some of these, relational differences are and how things are actually impacting women, like saunas every day or, cold plunge. Who knows? Like, what if I find out tomorrow cold plunge is the worst thing you could do? You will have the worst hot flashes. I'll stop tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
but we just don't have that data. And so until we can start to aggregate that data by looking at, and again, like wearables are going to give us a huge foundation. We're going to be able to track the life cycle of a woman throughout her 30s and 40s and 50s as she's going through, her menstrual cycle, going through conception and going through fertility and then perimenopause and menopause. Like we will have a better picture over time. We're just not there yet, and it's crazy enough. Like wearables have only been around for 5 years, 6 maybe. Like the hard data that we've been looking at things like Oura rings and Whoops, like it feels like they've been around forever, but they haven't. And so we just need to, kind of assess those over time. And that's, the unfortunate thing is we're going to just have to kind of wait and see what happens with generations like ours.
What's nice is too, though, is as women come in to programs like Reputable and some of these other tracking resources that are out there, is when you start now with an Oura and you're in your 30s or 40s and you're tracking over time, you can learn more about what's affecting your HRV and your sleep so that by the time you're at that point, you can make some educated guesses specific to you and your needs versus somebody else. And I think the hope with what we're doing is that we can build that picture as well and make some correlations in terms of recommendations. Everyone's going to be different, but if we can start to really see like where the signals are that are really impacting these negative side effects as you're going through into menopause, we can at least start to, instead of, I like to say, coming from some work in nutrition, they blanket everything. So it's don't eat gluten, reduce red meat, no processed sugars for everybody. Well, that doesn't work. Like your quality of life isn't sustainable when you're not eating anything or drinking or have sugar or your chocolate, whatever it is. So I think part of the hope is to really start to identify like what are the major factors that are actually impacting our physiology. And like you said, then how can we use that to change our future and make things more sustainable, improve our health and longevity?
Yeah, I love that. Those are both really good points. So much good to come, I feel like, which is great.
Supplements on the market right now that are being, that we're going to hopefully help women test as they're going through these different cycles of their lives and see if it's like, does this help with period symptoms? Does this help with menopause hot flashes, right? So we're seeing like this influx of new products and supplements and modalities that are coming onto the market. So we're here to be that truth engine and help validate if they're actually working.
I love that. So if anyone listening wants to sign up and work with you, be a part of Reputable Health, get the app, where can they go and how can they do that?
Absolutely. So in the show notes, we will have a link. All you need to do is download our app. It is free to join. You'll see there are a bunch of studies that you can join right away when you get into the app. And then we'll have a series of premium studies that you can apply for. And those are the ones where you'll actually get, a health product, which can be upwards of like $300. Like we get some crazy products that will get sent to you. And then if you do actually go through the whole study and you're compliant the whole way through, we also have gift cards at the end. So it's a great system. You can download it on the App Store or on Google Play.
Nice. I will add that to the show notes and put that everywhere on my website. Yeah. And I will definitely participate as well because I feel like I have all the data and the wearables and all the things already. So I definitely want to do that. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Mackenzie and Katie. This has been awesome. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys are doing in this space.
Yeah, thank you so much. We loved being on. And yeah, please come on the app. We are absolutely looking to get more women involved, especially women that are interested in their health. That is first and foremost our priority. So yeah, come on in and thank you again.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.